Hi and welcome to this video where we're going to look at the structure of a C# program. What I want us to understand first of all is there's several elements that could be inside of a C# program, and they are as follows: a namespace declaration, a class, methods, attributes, a main method, statements and expressions and comments. Now, the more observant ones of us would have noticed that I've mentioned methods and main method. There is a difference to these two, and these are the things that I want to talk about in this video. So, firstly, we have something called a namespace. Let me just move this out of the way. Pop myself over here. So we have this namespace. Now, if you think of it this way, a namespace is merely just a organizational mechanism, because it's possible to have several namespaces, each with different names, and we can organize the structure of our program in a logical way using these namespaces. I'll elaborate some more as we move on. But imagine we have a namespace, and inside of a namespace you can create class. So the class lives within a namespace, and inside of a class we can have a method. So we have a namespace. Imagine a namespace is like a folder. Inside that folder, we can have a class. Not only can we have one class, we can have several classes within the same namespace. And the method is something that belongs to a class. Now, if I go back a couple of steps, you can see that I mentioned us having a method versus a main method. And that's something I want us to really think about moving forward, because we have this namespace, we have a class, and a class can have several methods inside of it. In this example, I've only got one method, and we'll explain in more detail in future sessions. But for now, we just need to know this is the order in which we organize things. We organize things in this order to make accessibility and structure of our program a little bit more logical and something that makes sense to us. So if we give us this example of a zoo, we have a zoo, and inside of a zoo we have a class for a lion. So a lion lives within our zoo. So zoo being the namespace, don't forget, we have the lion, which is the class, and the method is an action that the lion can do. In this situation, the lion can roar, which is brilliant. We can also, within the same namespace, we can also have a duck, for example, and the duck can make a quack sound. Okay, now we can see inside of this organization, structure, we have a zoo. Inside of the zoo, we have two classes this time. Each class has their own method. Now, namespaces and organization and structure. The idea of using the namespace, if you can imagine, we can create two classes of the same name within two separate namespaces. That's the idea for having namespaces. It's a nice organizational structure for laying out the structure of our program. Let's move on. Now we know what those are. Let's have a look at a console application, just a plain console application. So the first line we see inside of this, on line number 1, we see the using. Let me move this out of the way. We see the using declaration. Now the using, if I just put my mouse over it, you can even see it. Using system. System is indicating to us that there is a namespace called system. Okay, now inside of that namespace called system, we have several classes that we can access. Just like we have the zoo, we can actually access several classes within that namespace called system. The next thing we have is the namespace declaration. So over here, you can see on line 3, I'm actually creating my own namespace, and this namespace is called Estio console app. That's the name of my namespace. Next, we have on line 5, the class declaration. The class declaration, this is where I can actually name my class. Because this is the default application, I actually call this program. I could choose to call it whatever I want. I can add more classes if I would like as well. But this default program is the name of the class. So program, class program. Next on class 7, this is where we have the difference between methods and the main method. So it's possible to have any number of methods. So here, for example, I could say public void spark, for example. And what I'm actually doing in this one here, in this method, I'm doing nothing at all, but I'll explain to us more about the ins and outs of each method. But you can see here, a method here is the name followed by the round brackets. So the main method is special. It's a special method because of what it can do. The main method is the entry point, the start of my program. Now, in any C# program that you are creating, any console application that you're creating, the main method is where we expect the program to actually start executing from. So I could have any number of additional methods, but it's true that none of those methods will execute until I actually call those methods. Now, within the main method, this is where the actual program will actually run. So it will run line number 9 as soon as the program is executed. And then we can see the last thing we need to know about the structure of a C# program is we can see the curly braces. These curly braces are really important, and I'll speak about those in more detail because they provide something for us called the scope. Okay, the scope meaning that things that we create, things that we use within the curly braces, they're only accessible to us within that curly braces. So if we created something inside of this within these curly braces, that means all of these two methods, all the methods within those curly braces will be able to access them. If I created something inside of here, they would not be accessible outside of that method. Okay, but we'll speak more about that, but that is the basic structure of the of a console application in C#.